Hello, this is a review of the Cuisinart 3.5 quart slow cooker. Now it is 3.5 quarts, so it feeds 1 to 2 people with a little bit of leftovers. It looks plenty large, as we can see inside, but remember that although it looks large, you still should only fill any slow cooker 2/3 of the way up for proper slow cooking. So unlike pictured on any slow cooker box, you'll really never fill it all the way. So we did prepare one meal that we filled it up, and we hadn't even put the rest of the meat in, and we're already filled up this high. So it's useful to have both a 5 quart and a 3.5 quart, even if you're cooking for 2 people, if you're going to have a whole lot of vegetables in here. And I'll show you a little bit later an example of a small meal that can be prepared in here. Now this crock-pot does support a 24-hour cooking timer, so you can actually cook something for 24 hours, and then it'll have an 8-hour warming period that it'll highlight after it's done cooking. Now it doesn't have a delayed start, as a lot of crock-pots don't. There's probably other sorts of issues with non-refrigeration if you're going to actually have a delayed start. But we thought this was great for us. A few things to note is the glass lid is like most crock-pots. It's not really heavy of a glass lid, but it was not a problem at all. It's continually pushing out steam from inside the pot, so we didn't actually have an issue with really needing to keep it down, because it's not making a pressure on it, but you'll see later in the video that it bubbles out through around the ring. Now, the inside of this pot is very heavy. I mean, it's quite heavy, but it's not so heavy that it's unwieldy. So one nice thing is of the 3.5 quart crock pot compared to our 5 quart is it was a lot easier to wash this in the sink. You can throw this in the sink, where on the 5 quart it's obviously a little bit harder to clean something larger when it's heavy like this. This crock pot, as some others have mentioned, does support 4 settings. Your usual low, high, and warm setting, but it also has this simmer setting, which some say that simmer is the old recipe's low. They'll tell you in the manuals, what the temperatures are, so that you have an idea of, you'll want to cross-check with your recipe to make sure you're cooking at the right temperature. Now, an interesting thing is this one said on the box, recipe book included with over 40 recipes. Now, sometimes it's kind of funny. A lot of crock pots will say that. And here is a different crock pot, our 5 quart. They just mean at the back of their normal manual, they'll throw some recipes on the last pages. So as we go to the back, then suddenly we get to recipes. Now, this is a different crock pot, the actual crock pot brand. This one actually is nice. It gives you a nice little spiral-bound slow cooker cookbook. No pictures inside, but it was pretty easy to read, to give you at least something, whereas you kind of laugh when you get to the back of the manual and they call that their recipes. The crock-pot brand crock pot was, the 5.5 quart was good for us too, but this, for the small recipes, because basically you don't want to put too little in, so you don't want to fill up only to the bottom of a larger crock pot. So basically you need to use the small 3.5 quart when it's the right size for 1 to 2 people and it doesn't overfill. But overall it worked well for us. The construction seemed great. We didn't have any problems at all. And I'll give you a quick little demo of us preparing another recipe. We're going to add the pork, the apples, and the cinnamon and brown sugar to the empty crock pot. And the pork's now in, and now we added the apples, and now we added the cinnamon and brown sugar. And the crock pot, as you notice, is about 2/3 full, which is about the maximum that you should fill a crock pot. And now we're cooking, we're plugged in, and we're turned on, and we're set for 6 hours, and we're set to low. Remember, don't remove the lid. Every time you remove the lid, you're going to have to add another 30 minutes to the timer. And now we're a little over 2 hours in, with 3 hours and 50 minutes to go. And you'll notice the steam has condensed around the outside to form a little bit of a liquid barrier at the side, and you'll see that as the steam inside escapes, you'll find bubbling around the edges. Some steam escapes through bubbling off the side, but don't remove the lid, remember. If you remove the lid, you'll have to add cooking time. And 5.5 hours in, we're looking really good. It isn't bubbling out of the top anymore. And now it's done cooking, and it is automatically switched to warming mode for up to 8 hours. And now it's done. And we're turned off. And now we're making barbecue pulled pork sandwiches, and we add just pork shoulder into the pot. Alright, cover. Cook for 8 hours on low, and there'll be another 2 hours, so at 8 hours we're going to put in sauce and seasonings. We're using a slightly different cut of meat, and the meat might cook faster, so we're going to actually test this meat, not the fault of the crock pot. My particular cuts of meat were done early. I measured with a thermometer to 145 degrees, and they finished in about 5 hours due to the size that I had. And then we added sauce and ingredients, and it's in for another hour. And now we have pulled pork. And the manual gives you more information about the different 4 different settings that this one has. Your high, low, simmer, and warm, and tells you the different temperature ranges that each of them cooks at, and they give you an idea of what you might cook at each of them. Normally you'll follow your recipe book, but if you're wondering what the simmer setting is for, it'll be for soups, stews, and stocks. Now I purchased this directly from Amazon, and so basically the crock pot came inside this box. This box came nested in 2 more layers of boxes, as this box was padded yet again inside of a Cuisinart brown box, and then that was inside yet another Amazon box when it arrived. So shipping wise, that seemed to be fairly well protected during shipping. We didn't have any issues at all shipping it from Amazon. Thanks for watching the review.
Cuisinart crock pot. It's about 2, maybe 2.5 years old. I've probably used it 10 times. And look at that chipping. I am hesitant to use it again.